Guys, what's up? I'm here back with Jeffrey Wittenhagen. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on?
Good. Dude, we're going to talk about the insane prices that retro games are going for. Specifically, there's three that come to mind. Super Mario Brothers, the original one, right? Mario 64 for the N64, and Zelda, the original Zelda for the NES. These auctions have been going crazy. Have you heard about how much they're going for? It's nuts.
This stuff is insane. It's been all within a month's time frame, and we see Zelda going for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, it's the biggest thing ever!" And then the next day, I think it was, or right around there, Mario 64 went for like 1.5 million
Yeah.
dollars.
Okay, so here's some numbers for you. Okay, Zelda, the original Zelda for the NES sold for $870,000, right? Also, N64, Mario N64 sold for 1.5 million. Super Mario Brothers, the original one, 2 million for the NES. That was great at 9.8. Insane. What you got
Can we
there?
just sell this? This is a mint sealed Friday the
I'll,
13th.
I'll give you a million for it right now. Easy. I
Oh,
got a million
awesome,
million spot.
awesome, awesome!
So question is,
That's
hey, who has enough
insane.
money? Who has enough money to spend? I mean, don't get me wrong, Jeffrey. I love games, but
Me
I could
too.
think of a million things more I'd want to buy. If I had that much more money, I'd invest. If I had $1 million to blow, like I'd rather buy a house or something that, like, I don't know. I love games, but not that much to the point where I'm going to spend that much money for a game. Is my point. I do have a sealed Mario. I'm sorry. I have a sealed Zelda Ocarina of Time collector's edition for the N64 that is mint. It's got the H seal. And I paid. I think I paid like $800 for it back like 6 years ago, and I haven't got it graded yet, and I probably should. But I was looking online on eBay, and one that sold like I think last month was not graded, in much worse condition as mine because it's got a mine. Seriously, there's nothing wrong with it from what I can visually see. This one was crushed a little bit, sold for $10,000, bro, on eBay.
Jeez.
That was a sales price, right? So part of me is tempted to like go to Wata and get graded. It's about $285 to have them do it and put in the case
Yeah.
or whatever to do that. But part of me is like, man, if I could get tens of thousands of dollars for it, or God forbid, like $1 million, not to say I would ever get that much money for it, I'd almost feel guilty selling it for that much, to be honest with you, man. That's crazy.
I
Crazy amount.
honestly I've never gotten anything graded. I've never been about
Right.
that life.
Right.
Um, the guys who started Wata were part of Nintendo Age. So I actually
Okay.
knew them from an old Nintendo Age campout. They used to do these get-togethers on Nintendo
Cool.
Age forums. So back in 2012, did the campout. Little known thing, there was a bunch of icons on Nintendo Age that you could do. So say you had Earthbound, you get a little Earthbound icon. There was
Right.
certain complete sets and things. There was one called the Campout Streaker, where
Hmm.
you had to go streaking naked at campout. And
That's hilarious.
myself and Dennis Kahn, who owns Wata or used to own Wata or whatever, both did the campout streaker together.
Together? That's classic, dude. Were you guys drunk or are you sober?
Oh, absolutely drunk. There was not a sober moment at that. Um,
That's
that being
hilarious.
said, I know the guys, so I know they know how to grade. They know video games. They know collecting.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of controversy surrounding this, and I haven't talked to Dennis since before around the time that he started Wata. I saw him at a couple conventions, and so I don't talk to him. So everything we'll talk about will be off the cuff. I
Mm.
would. I'm thinking that you and I both need to send these games in to get graded. By the way, that's a no-brainer.
I will, and
Um,
I'm going to
I
because
mean, my Friday 13th and I got a Legacy of the Wizard, both mint. I got a Caltron 6-1 sitting over here too.
I have. Well, you know my story, and I'll mention it again in case for those who don't know. But I picked up. Had it been like 7 years ago, I went to Goodwill, and I don't find shit at Goodwill most of the time, right? It's like it's most of it's. I happen to find a sealed. Again, you can tell by Nintendo seal because of the seam, right? You can tell it's certainly with the Game Boy. And to find box Game Boy games now is super hard because everyone threw them away, right? Everyone opened the game and
Yeah.
boy, a sealed Pokemon Red,
Oh
sealed.
my.
Now it's not as good a condition as my Zelda, but I would say I'm no professional grader, but it's got to be at least a 7.5. I mean, it's actually decent. My Zelda, like it is immaculate. I right now have it obviously in a case because I'm really protective of it, but I'm really curious on what they would grade. I'd be really surprised if it's below a 9. To be honest with you,
I
it's
have
that
heard
good.
that shipping them in the cases could cause damage.
Okay.
sliding inside that case, just FYI.
Okay.
But again, though, I've never said anything. I do know that they go to conventions, so I might just bring mine with me and give it to them at a convention.
That's a good
That way,
point. I've met him before at the conventions. I forget which one I saw him at. I think it was one in SoCal. Maybe they were at one. I've invited him to Game On Expo. I'd love to have him come out. I mean, from my experience with the guys seem stand up. I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that there's any conspiracy. But tell me about what's going on. What are some people theorizing? What's some of the conspiracy theories out there regarding this?
So first things first, there's a few conspiracies.
Okay.
First off is that the members of Wata and or Heritage Auctions, which they have a partnership, are buying these games. So like they're the ones like getting together with other people and purchasing the
Driving
game,
up the price. Yeah.
which means they would be driving up the price of their own business model that they're doing. I've not seen any confirmation. All I've seen is rumors on that. But this goes in with how can somebody afford $1.5 million or $2 million for a video game?
Right.
And so, first of all, John, if you had millions and millions of dollars, you have something called you have to diversify your funds, right? So you have to, so you're not just going to have like $1 million. If you're going to buy video games with it, you have to have millions and millions of dollars that you don't know what to do with. So if you're an individual entity, you have to learn diversification of funds. It's like you don't want to put all that into a US based bank. You go to a Swiss bank account because they only insure up to a certain amount of money. And then from taxing purposes, if you're earning too much money, you would get taxed to all get out on all this money. So what they do is they diversify the funds on different assets, which video games is now apparently becoming a viable asset like baseball cards and comics and things that hold its value so people can diversify their funds into it. So it's turning into this boring old investment term thing. So that's one thing. So what people are doing though, I don't know if you've seen these websites, but there are websites that will allow you, John, the opportunity to buy a piece of that Super Mario Brothers.
Really?
That's how it got to $2 million. That's my assessment. That's how these games are getting that high.
So it's like stock, like you're buying stock into it.
Crowdfunding stock into these games. So like say a Kickstarter, but instead of supporting a book or a game, your Kickstarter is you buy $100 piece of that 2 million Super Mario Brothers.
At first you threw me off because I thought literally you meant like a piece, like they're actually going to break this shit up and like you mail and
no.
So you mean
you'll
like
never see it. You
but who has it? Who has it?
That I don't know. And remember back in the day, if you and I would go as kids and we each buy half a Mario, who gets to play it on the weekend? Like that's what it becomes. Who gets it?
That would make sense. Now here's the thing why I think it could be legitimate, right? Because you look at the original comic #1, Action Comics #1, Superman, recently sold for $3.25 million, right? $3 million plus. You look at Hodness Wagner, just sold literally like the other day. I just saw something on the ESPN yesterday about it. $6.6 million. Hodness Wagner, which is one of the rarest baseball cards out there, right?
It's crazy that video games are getting up there now. $2 million.
Right. But the thing is, that's my point, is you have comics, you have baseball collecting, card collecting, which is crazy on fire right now. Look at Pokemon right now. Target has stopped selling Pokemon cards because it's nuts. The demand for Pokemon cards. I'm serious. I'm seriously tempted to sell I have a Pokemon station, like one of those Blockbuster kiosks that was only available. I'm seriously tempted to sell it because the Pokemon craze right now is nuts. So anyway, I don't want to go too off topic, but my point is you have comics, you have baseball cards, video games are certainly part of history, part of nostalgia. We grew up playing these games, right? I don't think personally anyone who paid, like, say if I were to pay $2 million for a game, I would never publicly tell people that because why would I?
And where would you store that? Would you store something that's worth $2 million in a bank vault somewhere?
My wife would divorce me first off because she's like, why are you spending $2 million on a game that you don't have, right? I'm not even close to that much money.
Well, it would be even, my wife wouldn't be happy if I spent $1,000 on a game that I don't have physical. Like if I spend $1,000 on a game and it's sitting in a vault somewhere in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or you know what I mean, wherever they decide. Because I assume that company who is diversifying those funds is literally storing all of those items somewhere in a secured bank vault or something like that.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's got to be under lock and key, which means you're never going to see the thing. It's really just clout and really just an investment. So if you need to cash it out like a 401k or something, you can cash out at a certain percentage loss or whatever if you have to do it after a certain amount of time if they don't sell it. So there's that is the scheme, and it's not necessarily like a mass marketing scheme or a Ponzi scheme or any of this crazy money laundering that you're hearing online. It's none of that. I think it's literally like these new companies jumping in to help diversify funds of investors. Like that's got to be what it is. But you mentioned something very important.
What's that?
So you said you have a Pokemon kiosk, right? Let's rewind about 4 or 5 years ago. Nintendo Age was still around. There was a lot of controversy because there were guys that said, "Oh, let me wait until people are starting to sell these games for a lot because I got cases sealed."
Right.
There are a few people that I know from the old school Nintendo Age that had not a sealed Mario Brothers cases.
Cases, yeah.
Cases sealed, so games come in cartons of like 10 to 20 or whatever. They're sealed. So if those guys pop out of the woodwork now that it's millions of dollars and they just start trickling them out, like they have copies. There's copies of sealed Little Samsons and sealed Stadium events out there.
I'm sure the warehouse is full of stuff like that.
Well, it's not warehouses. It's in collectors.
But
it's
in collectors, right? Boxes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they're under lock and key. And I know people out there, like you see people going for like the Guinness World Record for the largest video game collection, but there's people on the DL that have things.
Yeah. That's why I would never pay that much for, I don't want to say common game, but it's like everyone owns Super Mario Brothers, right? Everyone, if you had an NES, most likely had Super Mario Brothers, right? That's why if I were to have that much money, like remember the PlayStation prototype that sold?
Yeah, that would be it. Yep.
That would be the item that I'd want. And that only sold for, I say only, but didn't that only sell for like, I don't know, $100,000 maybe?
It sold for way less than what Terry Diebold was offered for it at conventions. They turned down because he wanted to take it to auction. It was sold for way less than what he was offered, and that's unfortunate because it was a really good dude. But so rest in peace, dude, for sure. It was very interesting though when it comes to. I lost my train of thought now. Thinking about Terry.
No, a moment of silence for Terry because he's a good dude.
Such a good dude. I mean,
go ahead.
It's the issue that we have is that it's not you're not paying. That's what it was. Okay, so it's not the commonness of the game. It's that you're buying it because you're never going to find one as mint.
As mint.
It's paying for perfection because it's great to perfection. So it's not a 7.5. It's a 9.9 A+ because they do a double rating at Wata. They do a number and then a letter. So you could have a 9.8 A+ or a 9.9 B, and that 9.9 A+ is going to be better.
Right. That's an interesting point. Yeah.
And that's completely insane, by the way. That double
just the value of games in general is nuts. Like I'm saving up. I'm saving money. I'm going to buy that new Mandalorian pinball machine. I don't know if you've seen it or not by Stern.
Oh, so good.
It's beautiful. So it's about $6,000 for the Pro model, which is the base model, and I'm like saving money for that, which is not cheap. So I've been selling some pieces of my collection, and I just put up on eBay my Panzer Dragoon Saga for the Saturn. Right, it's complete, and I paid 9 years ago. I paid like $400 or $500 for it, and I flipped it for $1,500. So that alone, and I got an offer the next day. So that alone covers a quarter of my pinball machine. So my point is, it's nuts, and certainly it was open. It wasn't, but it was in good condition. So I just shipped it out this afternoon, actually.
Sad times.
So it's sad, like teardrop, because it's a great game. But in the same point, like, man, it's a lot of money too you can get for a single game. So you kind of have to look at it like an investment. I invested $500. I tripled my value in 9 years. It's kind of like a home. You accrue. Yeah.
Bringing it back to Wata, and you needed to sell maybe Ocarina of Time. They have Super Mint for a profit, so you can buy the next Mandalorian pinball or the next thing. Keep in mind, there's a giant backlog right now with Wata. So if you submit something, unless you do the expedited extra amount, so I don't know if it's like $250 for the standard and it's even more to get it faster. going to take half a year probably or something. Like I heard that it's really long. That's not verbatim, but like I heard it's very long. So you got to budget that time in if you're sending anything to get graded. I'll probably never get around to sending I don't collect sealed, so the couple I have are from conventions or from game swaps and
Yeah,
stuff.
I'll probably wait to see him at a convention. To be honest with you, I'll bring it at
Me
a
too.
convention, and I'll invite him to Game On Expo, and I'll see him in person. All that good stuff. But
Yeah,
that will lead into our next discussion: gaming events.
yeah, it'd be fun.
So awesome. Anything else you want to add, Jeffrey?
It's just that don't believe everything you hear online until you see proof. So until we see there would be a congressional hearing on that if there was legitimate multi-million-dollar sales where there were money laundering and collusion with the company that's grading. Like that's major.
People going to
like
jail for
federal.
that shit. If that were to
Yeah,
happen, people going to jail. So no
that's
joke.
where regardless of me knowing the guys or not, there's no way that's actually going to be proven unless we start to see something like being investigated. Then we're like, oh crap, maybe my buddies are going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
But I honestly, they're really stand-up guys. I would be very surprised if they were doing something like that.
Just be careful what you read online and speculations and conspiracy theories in general. Regardless, just be careful. Mm-hmm. Find multiple sources and just trust your source, right?
But you know what they say at Game On, John? Anything can happen. So who knows?
Hey, what happens at Game On? Stays at Game On. There you go. That's right.
And again, any viewers, you want to hear some stories, just let us know in the comments, and we will do a recording.
Oh, man. There's
all day at Game On.
Crib Arcade nights with, good times.
I got stories.
Good times, indeed. All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon, man. Take care. Game On.